welcome to Watch, Review, Repeat. This is the podcast where two best friends discuss the latest in film and television and then do it all over again the following episode. My name is Colton Brown, and joining me, a very tired Andrew Meadows.
Tired and inebriated Andrew Meadows.
For a good cause.
I'm here. That's it. We had a fundraiser tonight for my family's foundation, and it was a well put on event. And we're here at 11 o'clock. Recording.
Not quite. Come on.
Not quite. What time?
He's running. It's 10:48 p.m. 10:48 p.m. A totally reasonable time to record a podcast on a Thursday night. Come on.
Recording 2 days in a row. I'm dragging a little bit. So if the usual energy seems a little lackluster, it's because I'm putting every drop into the podcast. We're running
and then
low
it will
on
be bedtime.
That's it. We're running low on the tank. So we are here, and we are all excited. We are all excited because we have a special guest.
Yes, now on for a fourth consecutive episode.
Wow.
You might as well just bump
feel
him up to official co-host.
Feels special.
The amount of Marvel stuff that we always have to cover, it just works out that way. But Henrique Jaime, welcome back.
Yeah, thank you. Let's get into this.
Yes, let's do it. We talked about Comic-Con. We talked about a lot of Marvel stuff, a lot of other stuff, plenty of DC and Warner Brothers stuff. We won't rehash that here and now, although there are things to talk about on that front. We'll save that discussion for another episode. Otherwise, we'll be here for too long again, we'll say. But we didn't have time last night. We assembled last night, and we didn't have time by the time we finished up all the Comic-Con stuff to talk about Ms. Marvel, which is what we hope to do. We hope to do it all in one big, long episode, but it would have turned into a 4-hour episode. And I say long, and we're not opposed to doing 4-hour episodes. We've done it before.
Just depends on how early we start.
Right. It's just a big file.
I don't think that wasn't the game plan. And so we've reconfigured things, and so we're treating Ms. Marvel as its own separate episode. And I think that's okay. Maybe this is a shorter episode, and that's okay. I'm sure the listeners won't mind one bit. But we will start. We will start with some fun facts on Ms. Marvel. If anyone has anything to offer on that particular subject.
Alrighty. So I can give a little something. This is something that if anyone's watched like interviews and all the talk shows, you're probably already aware. But I think it's just a great story. You have to reiterate it for anyone who's not aware. But we will get into, who Ms. Marvel is and the show and everything and the cast. But I think it's just so cool when you have something that's so recent that people are fans of it before it even becomes a thing. So I was familiar and I've read some Ms. Marvel before the show was announced because it was just like a big thing at Marvel Comics at the time. So naturally people became fans and, started dressing up, like doing cosplay, doing costumes and things. And who was doing costumes and cosplay of Ms. Marvel, if not the main actress to eventually get the role? Iman Vellani, she dressed up as Ms. Marvel. There's like pictures online and everything for Halloween. And later then turns out that she's going to play the titular character in a very own TV show and eventually in a movie, which I think is just fun. Like, I think anytime you see someone who's a fan of the character who then like gets to be the character, like that's just cool. And I think the enthusiasm definitely comes off in her portrayal of Comic-Con.
Yeah, and I think to add to that, I think why she's very good in this role, and we'll get into that obviously later, is that she just kind of is Kamala. Like that's basically who she is. She's a big like Marvel fangirl, and though like Miss Marvel, the character is a Captain Marvel fangirl, I think Iman is more of a Iron Man fangirl. Yeah. I think is what she said, but like she's a huge MCU stan, basically. Like she knows the universe front and back. Probably better than the three of us, honestly.
It's been going on for so long, and when you're young,
and like she grew up with
like half your life.
Shit.
Yeah, it's like literally half your life.
So she's been there from the get-go, basically, of being a kid when the first Iron Man comes out to growing up as the MCU has gone through phase 1, 2, 3, and 2, 4, and now having, leading her own show. It's insane. I mean, it's great.
It's awesome.
But I think that the reason that she feels very genuine as this kind of fangirl type character is because she's very much channeling elements of her own personality into it, and she's perfect for the role, basically as a result. So, yeah. Andrew, do you have anything to offer?
I do. It is a historical kind of thing.
Right.
There's references to an event called the Partition of India. It largely presents itself in a show as like a major plot point for like the reason why things are, and like the reason why things are happening in the show. And I had no idea about this.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Henrique has a different take on it, but I think that this is an event that is completely absent from Florida textbooks. And maybe a lot of American textbooks. Maybe Florida doesn't necessarily need to be singled out here, but obviously we're all working off a Florida high school education here, so... even in our advanced, history classes, I don't recall.
Oh no, very little. Like I had a vague idea that like India was occupied by the British, and there was this like religious conflict, and then eventually they started splitting people up like secularly, and Pakistan, was a separate thing. But you don't know any, like I didn't know any of the real history behind it, anything about it really.
It's such a shame.
And the crazy thing is, like, obviously, I think you could say like focus on American history because you're in the country. Like, how many times did we cover World War II? Again, like 10 times. Like I feel like we covered World War II in like every single class, and like it was a big event, obviously encompassing the whole.
It's a patriotic
whole world.
moment. That's why,
right?
It's like a.
I don't think I need.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and I was like, I think you learn about it once or twice, and you get the big picture. Like, obviously, you can keep going into the history of it, but then you're missing out like on everything else. It's just like focus on like America,
it's like a big deal thing,
Western Europe, and that's about it.
Like, I guess America wasn't directly involved or anything like that, but
right.
But it's a big deal thing that's like,
and it
impacts
America now.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
Absolutely,
at this point it does. Yeah. So it's wild.
I was
anyway.
I have to give a shout out to a podcast that I've listened to a couple times. I haven't listened to it recently, but it's called Hardcore History.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the there was Supernova in the East is like a series of podcasts that he puts out, and it talks about like the history of China and how the interactions between like Japan and China and all that sort of stuff, and it's wildly interesting. Like the things that we learn in school are largely in place because of like it kind of builds the way he presents it is it's largely to build a confidence in your government and that sort of thing at a young age. And then you kind of learn about those things. So like we learn about World War II and our part in it, and like what we stood by and what we represented and why we got involved, and to kind of build that confidence in what your nation's doing is right. Same thing happened in like China and this and that. Anyways, I mean, you had the partition of India here where the English effectively split up India, the Republic of India, into two parts. You got India and then Pakistan, divided along religious lines based on whether or not you're Muslim or not. And it's cited on Wikipedia, which I don't know what they're citing, but the partition displaced between 10 and 20 million people along religious lines, creating overwhelming calamity in the newly constituted dominions. It's often described as one of the largest refugee crises in history. And this is something that is completely just, it's not there until it gets revealed to me by a Disney show, which is, it kind of speaks volumes about what Disney is starting to turn and represent as far as representation and the direction that they're choosing to go into. If I'm learning my news from a Disney Marvel show,
it's history.
That's. I mean, I think that's probably a huge problem. First and foremost, an entertainment company giving me a history lesson versus what I've learned in school. But kudos to Disney. I'm sure there's a tinge here or a tinge there of what's accurate and what's not. But just for revealing that there's this huge historical movement that happened and it still impacts us today that, I was unaware of until I'm 30 years old and I had to learn it from Miss Marvel it comes to me as a huge thing. So anyways, I was really blown away by this historical thing that happened that I was unaware of for my entire life. And I learned it from Miss Marvel. So fun fact from me. So,
and I feel like that's been sort of a theme, like not every, superhero TV show is doing this, but you mentioned, I don't think you covered like a whole episode on it, but HBO's Watchmen series.
Yeah. I was just thinking about that.
Covers the Tulsa race massacre.
Yes.
And that's something,
I had no idea about
something that I legitimately did not know happened.
That was insane. Literally in America too.
Right, exactly.
Almost
like that's in our country.
You have
like 100 years ago. It's not even like it was ancient history.
What's the horror show that came out?
Lovecraft had an episode.
Yeah, Lovecraft covered it too.
Tied in with that too.
Yeah.
Right.
You have multiple entertainment industries like showing you historical events that happened in America.
And I think that's so cool that you can use real historical events and tie in the fictional elements to create a story. Like, I think that just makes it inherently more interesting.
It does.
I agree. It makes it feel real because it is. You know what I mean? I think that you can create like really genuine stories out of basically what is true lived through history. Like, that's something that, I think you probably see it a lot. I mean, you see a lot of World War II movies and stuff like that, but I think it's doubly interesting almost when it's something that like, holy shit, this is a thing, and oh my god, this has a million paragraphs in its Wikipedia entry, and I've literally did not know this was a thing. Like, am I ignorant?
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck happened here?
Really, you feel like dumb about it.
I think it's not. I think it's cool that it's a major corporation shining a spotlight on. Not that it's like some mandate from Disney top down being like, no, you have to cover this. This must be covered in the Miss Marvel show. It's obviously coming from an authentic place of hiring creators who know about this and maybe had family affected by it or something like that, and finding a way to incorporate it and tell stories that have probably never been told in like this sort of media, and certainly not on this scale. I think all of it just makes for a really, really fascinating like storytelling place almost. So
yeah, totally.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because even if you don't make a great show, at least it's different. Like, it's something you haven't seen. It's like a new story. So I think by all means, like, just keep telling new stories. Like, it's just at the very minimum, be new. If
you can inspire people to learn about why we're here or how we got here, or any of that, if you can inspire people to expand, like, just their understanding of the people around them, I think it's absolutely imperative that you do it. I don't know, you kind of owe it to humanity as a platform of Disney or HBO or something like that. If you have the opportunity to tell a story that's not being told, or a major more importantly, a major historical event it's not being touched on, you owe it to everybody to tell it. You know what I mean? I think it's awesome that we're being told these stories and they're shedding light on these historical events. I think it's awesome. So
yeah.
Fun fact. Boop.
There you go.
Boop. There you go. All right. So we're just gonna get right into Miss Marvel. How about that?
Yeah.
I mean,
dive right in.
It's a little untraditional for us, but it means we don't have to switch gears. We usually have to switch gears. Usually we're talking about someone dying, and and other things that are happening, and companies dying. Apparently, again, just not to bring up WB again, but it's really close to mind, obviously, based on our lengthy conversation of it on the last episode / last night for us. But Miss Marvel, it's a Disney Plus original series created by Bisha K. Ali. I should say I will probably mess up some of these names. I'm pulling Andrew, so to speak. Not to throw him under the bus, but I'll try my best. It's a 6-episode series, 3 directors, technically 4 directors, a team of 2 working on it. splitting the load. So Adil and Bilal did the first and sixth episodes. Mira Manon, I believe, did the second and third, and then Charmin Obaid Chinoy did the fourth and fifth episodes of Miss Marvel. The show stars Iman Vellani, who we talked about very, very recently, and a fun fact. Matt Lentz, Yasmin Fletcher, Zenobia Shroff, Mohan Kapoor, Sagar Shaikh, Laurel Marsden, Rish Shah, Nimra Bucha, Samina Ahmad, Mewish Hayat, Farhan Akhtar, and Aramis Knight. So Kamala Khan is a superhero. Kamala Khan is a superhero fan with an imagination, particularly when it comes to Captain Marvel, who feels like she doesn't fit in at school and at home until she gets some superpowers like the heroes that she's looked up to. So yeah, basically. We'll start with non-spoilers here.
He's just going on to get
the show's been wrapped up. Yeah, he loves fucking
like some guitar riffs,
Excite Bike and shit. He's been playing some Excite Truck recently, is what he's been doing, obviously. But how do we want to start? Who wants to start? Who wants to talk about Miss Marvel?
I can kick it off.
All right, go for it. Low energy Miss Marvel non-spoilers. What do you have?
So this is what I got. No, I'm joking. I think initially Miss Marvel kind of hit it off to me like it almost felt like a live action Into the Spider-Verse kind of, just the way that they kind of like interwove like anime, and it also felt like what's that Netflix movie that caught us completely off guard?
Mitchell's versus the Machines, kind of with like the graphics and the words and stuff, kind of like that style.
Exactly, yeah. You throw Kamala Khan's like drawings and stuff and superimpose them onto real world things and whatnot. It felt very, very stylish, and kind of initially it kind of felt like style over substance, but I feel like after about a couple of I think probably 2 or 3 episodes in, I'm a couple of weeks departed from the show, so it's kind of
I think we probably I think Henrique finished it pretty recently.
Yeah, I actually
finished
just finished it
about a week ago.
Mm-hmm.
So there's still a little bit of a gap for some of us, but
yeah, I mean
we know things.
It has a lasting impression, which is good, but those heavy hitting thoughts are kind of like fleeting just because it's been a couple weeks. But initially, I recall it feeling kind of more style over substance for the first couple of episodes, but then it really found its footing. And then by the end of the series, like a couple of times, it kind of like brought a tear to my eye, and it was just it was really heartfelt. And I think that they, as a non-informed person for a lot of the heritage and the history and all that, it did feel to me very heartfelt and genuine in the direction it chose to go with its story. I also think the implications for the MCU are huge with this character and like what this character brings to the table. So as an MCU and Marvel fan, I couldn't be more pleased with what we received. As a quote unquote critic of films, I think that films and television, I should say, I think that the way that the artistic and like the artistic stuff was kind of like interwoven into the story, I think it was really creative and original. I also think that it draws a lot on its inspirations on movies and shows before it. I think that it was as far as like the representation in the film, it wasn't like a shoehorned kind of thing to like, hey, like let's check these boxes off and who we need to put into this film. It felt like a very genuine storytelling reason why to have, who was in the show. You know what I mean? It felt good. It felt like a genuine story, which is awesome. And I think that the story as a whole was really heartfelt and genuine, and just educational. As somebody that didn't know anything about the content or the history or anything like history, as somebody that didn't know the history of any of the content that it represented or what it brought to the table, I didn't know any of that stuff, and it inspired me to learn more about the history. I did it again. Fuck.
Honestly, to this point, you've been doing great. So
it inspired me. It inspired me to research and learn things about things I didn't know, which is awesome. Like,
right.
I mean,
like the partition,
like
talked about it in the
exactly.
like
Speaking exactly to that, the partition of India and everything else. You know what I mean? That's if you can inspire people through a fictional story to learn something that's relevant and historically important to like the world, then kudos to you. You've done a thing. You know what I mean? It's a really important thing on a massive platform. So I think that not only that the show, in conclusion, I would say that the show is not only important for the MCU, it's important because it brings to a massive platform a history of people that aren't regularly represented on the platform that this is represented on. And then speaking to the content alone, absent of all of that other stuff, I think it's a very well-told, heartfelt, creative, original story. Just the cinematography, the storytelling beats, the acting. I think it's a well-told story. So all that other stuff aside, I think it's great. So it's kind of my 2 cents. So I will rest now while you guys share your opinions.
Don't fall asleep on us. We'll hear the snoring. I'll put it in at the end of an outro, like I talked about last episode. I'll do it. Don't think I won't. Henrique, how did you feel about Miss Marvel?
So I like the series overall. I think this is one of the stronger MCU Disney Plus offerings that we've gotten, and I think it's been very mixed, I think, throughout, and I think this falls into the stronger category for sure. And I agree with Andrew. Like, I think this is an important show because Miss Marvel is also like a very popular character. She's very new, but kind of when she came on the scenes, just exploded. It's a different character, but that had a lot of stuff to relate to, whether you're Pakistani or not. It's kind of like Spider-Man. There's a lot of stuff to relate that anybody can relate to in her story, but it's also very culturally specific, which is cool. And you don't get to see that. Mm-hmm. So I liked the comics quite a bit, and I always thought that it would fit better actually as a TV series, just because the stakes weren't so huge all the time. It's like these like very everyday, like using air quotes for everyday because it's like superhero related, but it's not like, she gets involved in some Avengers and bigger plot lines, but I think the most fun is when you're just in high school, when you're just with the family. And those are probably the scenes that I enjoyed the most in the TV show too. Like the scenes with her family, like I could spend, 6 episodes just seeing her interact with her dad and her mom and her brother. And they just felt like such a genuine family unit. Probably the best family that we've gotten in the MCU, like when it comes to think of it, especially just a family who's like actually supportive. Either they're alive or they're supportive, and this is like one of the few Marvel stories that's not about like mommy and daddy issues necessarily, which is cool. Like there's conflict, but it's like very reasonable and they're very supportive. So I enjoyed that quite a bit. And it's I think 6 episodes is the question for all these Disney Plus shows. Especially towards the end, they're trying to do a lot, like in every show, and I feel like either it's got to be a little bit longer or just try to do a little bit less. And so that's probably one of my biggest gripes with the show, which is the same issue that I've had with pretty much every other Disney Plus Marvel show. It's like it's either trying to do a lot, not enough time, or just, expand, just have more time to flesh certain things out. So
what do you think was the case here? Was this too compressed or too stretched?
I think probably more too stretched, because I think you could do 6 episodes fine, but when you're adding like her storyline, which is the most important arguably, but then you have the damage control stuff, you have the clandestine stuff, there's a lot of different plot lines going on, especially towards the end. I'm like, some of these I cared a lot more, and maybe I would have cared more about the other ones if we had spent enough time with them. But also, I'm glad that we spent most of the time with Miss Marvel and her struggle, but also like her family and her friends, because that was the most fun part of the show for me. So very, very, very positive overall, but just kind of that same issue that I've had before.
All right. Any other thoughts, non-spoiler wise?
I don't know. You haven't said your 2 cents.
Well, yes, I meant for me specifically. I really, really enjoyed Miss Marvel. I think that it's probably one of the best Disney Plus series I think that we've gotten thus far. In the sense that for me, it felt very cohesive to me. I think that some of the other shows have had some really great, some really great moments, but kind of have been somewhat uneven, I think, in terms of episodes. And I think that this one was, for me, one of the ones that was just episode to episode consistently very good. Or things, there were episodes that I liked better than others, and I think that, the stuff like Andrew talked about, like the creativity of how they use like the graphics on the screen, like that kind of disappeared in the middle of the show a little bit, and then kind of came back around a little bit in the finale. But I liked that kind of, flair to it. I mean, and then I think that ties in with what you're talking about, Henrique, of like the best parts of the show are the time that you spend with Kamala and company. The other stuff, like the villains are fine. I didn't think they were bad. I just
right. They're not bad, but they're just
were just kind of there.
They're not the most memorable.
They were there for the purposes of having someone for her to fight and kind of struggle against, because she's like a hero just kind of learning the ropes a little bit at this point. And I think that the fighting stuff was probably the least interesting. And I think that her just being a teenager and navigating school as a somewhat unpopular kid and dealing with her family who don't really understand, why she loves Captain Marvel and loves Avengers and, gives a shit about all this. Like, I think that's the stuff that feels really real and personal and like interesting. And I think the show is mostly that. And then when it is that, it's at its best. And then when it's not that, it's still okay. It's okay to pretty good. I mean, the damage control people are annoying as fuck, so fuck them. But I think that all of it worked really well. I think that for me, 6 episodes was a pretty. I thought it felt fairly like tight enough overall that no one overstayed their welcome. I don't think, and I felt like it never drifted too far afield from what it was trying to do and kind of the stuff it was trying to capture. And even when it did, when it was like shifting kind of settings and stuff like that, I actually thought that was like a really interesting reset in some ways for how they did, how they approached the storytelling. I think that, go ahead.
Sorry, I had a thought.
Yes.
Kind of like
interject.
Break
what
my
is your thought?
Break my slumber because I have a thought.
You just I have something to say. Something came to mind.
One of my favorite things about this show is you have like a Muslim American teen trying to navigate what that looks like in New York. And not only
Jersey,
like
but...
Jersey, whatever, it's all the same.
Don't tell them that. Don't tell people in New York that. They will definitely take offense. Honestly, the Jerseyans will take offense as well.
It's funny. All I can think about is Kevin's brother. All of this over here can be yours, but don't look in the Shadowlands. That's Camden.
Yeah,
that's a total rip-off.
Philly's the same way, right?
Anyways, I'm sorry, that was in the weeds. Yeah, you have this Muslim American teen who's trying to like navigate what it is to be, to like grapple with the security in her faith and her family, with what it is to fit in. At the same time, navigating her family, right? And like she has to go to, I guess Pakistan or India, I can't remember, to meet her grandmother and all this other stuff. Maybe that's spoilery, I don't know. But so surface level, because as somebody that doesn't know what that's like, having to having to watch those, just watch those situations kind of unfold, and how this young woman finds herself. I thought that was wildly interesting and very compelling. I think it's probably one of my favorite aspects of the film is like finding the security in who you are. Whether that leans more towards Western views or being secure in your heritage and like where you come from and your faith and stuff. I thought that was really compelling. That was really good. It's one of my favorite things of the show, I think.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I agree with that. I mean, I think that it puts the Muslim faith, I think, front and center, and it doesn't ever shy away from it. And I think that that's great from, purely from a representation standpoint, because it's obviously something that we haven't seen in the MCU to date, at least prominently, if ever. I mean, I can rack my brain and try to think, but I really don't think, not that like any religion has been super to the forefront, but here it's such a central part of like Kamala's life in, her community and her family around her, that like,
and she struggles with it.
Sense to right, and so yeah, and so it makes sense to kind of have it front and center. And I think that I think it was really important to have them, prominently display it. And I think that that's again an extension of basically the creatives involved, basically being like, this is my life experience, and I'm showing it to you. I'm putting it on the screen in this form on a fucking Disney Plus series because. People probably don't know a lot about this, or people don't see this a lot. They're not exposed to this. I mean, Muslims are vilified, I think, largely speaking, in American culture, and that's a shame. Obviously, that's a shame. Like it's a really terrible thing, and I think this does, I think, a good job of just being like, they just are people that have different beliefs and practice.
Everybody's just people,
in a different
man.
way than Christians do.
But it's still
like, okay,
it's still like kind of
what's so bad about this?
It still kind of addresses some of those things too. Like they had that one really
and
really
way,
really dark joke. I don't know if you remember, where the damage control is talking about like listening on the mosques, and they're like, oh yeah, we have to like kind of spy on them, and they're like, oh yeah, the FBI already does that. And I was like,
right.
And it was like a really quick joke. And I was like, damn, that was dark because of how real it was. But they just like kept it moving. And I was like, whew.
And that's kind of the thing. It's like, yeah, I mean, maybe that's a subtle little thing you might not think about in the moment, or maybe you do think about it and think, oof, like you said. But like, they're hitting on some truths here, and they're not pussyfooting around things that they I think once upon a time, AKA under Ike Perlmutter and and the full. The show doesn't get made 10 years ago. I mean, even going back 10 years, maybe 5 years ago, I don't think the show gets made in the way that it was made. And I think it's important, to do this and to just not be afraid to do it. Andrew's currently being serenaded by many animals. They said, wake up, fool. But yeah, I think that was great, and I think it's a nice, true, authentic depiction of the teenage experience. I think much like the Spider-Man Home trilogy, I think did a pretty good job of, what it's like to just be a kid growing up in this crazy world where you get powers, and how do you navigate your personal relationships and stuff like that, and how do you deal with family. And, it's similar dynamics as Spider-Man, but different because the culture is different, because the community is different because she's a girl,
and different powers, different inspiration.
Powers. It's there's some crossover for sure, but enough differences that it doesn't feel any way like a retread or anything like that.
No.
And it makes for just some compelling and sometimes cringy drama. Brett, I mean, talked about her with the fun fact, but Iman Vellani crushed it here. I thought she was fantastic for someone who has never acted before. This is a fantastic performance. I guess
it's very charming and just like
never acted in a major role, at least I'll say. I mean, I feel like I don't think she's ever been in a film. I don't think she's ever been in a TV show. She might have done some shorts or something like that. Just taking a look at her filmography, but like pretty much unknown coming into this, and just taking charge, taking control of this role as Kamala, and just owning it. I thought she was fantastic, and I thought the supporting cast was really good too.
Everybody,
very entertaining. Great. She had good chemistry with her friend Bruno. we won't talk about him any day.
I want to talk about Bruno.
And I just there's different things where it's like Peter Parker gets he's got MJ, but Miss Marvel has like different, like it almost reminded me of Turning Red, where like there's just like teenage girls have crushes on this person, and then there's like there's another hot guy that walks up, and then she goes to Pakistan, and there's another hot guy.
Yeah,
around.
as soon as like Kamran comes out, I'm like, oh shit, and then she goes over there. Yeah, I was like, about to have a love, funny, a love but diamond.
It's just like it felt, pretty much. But it was very entertaining at the same time. So yeah, I all in all really enjoyed it. I want to talk about the changes from comics to film, but maybe we'll talk about that in spoilers. That might be reserved for the spoiler conversation to flesh that out. Instead
I thought that one girl
conversation here and then one later.
Who's the actor? I don't know the actress or the character's name. I can't remember. But her friend in high school, I thought was tremendously inspiring. I thought she was awesome.
The one who was running for the position on the Moss board?
Yeah.
Nakia, I think.
Nakia, yeah.
I thoroughly enjoyed her character. I thought she was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of the thing. Like, I kind of miss her and Bruno and the family, when she's away, and I'm like, I kind of really miss that dynamic and that vibe. So, when they're on screen together, it's great.
Yeah. It's a very fun show. I think at the end of the day, I mean, the Marvel stuff has been very consistently enjoyable. But I think that this one will have some rewatchability because I think it was pretty well paced and interesting enough that I think that the moments of interactions between Kamala and company will always still be funny and entertaining. And I think the rest of the stuff, the plot heavy stuff, is still interesting because a lot of it is about finding yourself, your heritage and stuff like that. And we'll kind of know what the deal is if we ever go back and rewatch this show, or maybe as they explore it further with her further entries, either continuation of the show or her appearance in the Marvels. Like, I don't know. I found it all like really interesting, and like Moon Knight was like a kind of different cross section. Like I said, it's got some crossover with Spider-Man because it's a teenager with powers, blah blah blah, in high school. But like other than that, it's like completely fucking different and completely unlike what you've seen in the MCU to date, which is great. Change things up, do things differently, show us some new things, keep us hooked, keep us interested, and I'll be there for it. So yeah. Should we do a recommendation?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So what is the recommendation? Is it a very yes? Is it a yes? Is it a totally fine? Is it a fine? Is it a shithouse? What say you all?
Oh, well, I highly recommend. What would that be? I'm sorry.
I was like, I don't know. It's your scale.
Are you going with the highest option? Are you going with the very yes? Or are you gonna? Would you say it's a very yes? Would you say it's a yes?
What I would say,
you're somewhere around those two.
I think I'm a very yes on the show.
Okay.
And I'm very yes on the show for. I think I'm very yes on the show solely because of what it brings. I think I'm very yes on the show solely, not solely, but fuck, I can't think of my words.
Partially,
at least partially. Yes, I am very yes on the show partially because it inspired me to learn more. A fictional Marvel Cinematic Universe show inspired me to do research on a very real and relevant topic. And I think that it did a excellent job of portraying a certain group of people that don't get a whole lot of representation in large on a large platform, especially like a Western major platform.
Right.
And I think that it's I think that not only is the culture largely not represented, but there's a beautiful culture that isn't present, and it's super relevant. And I think that the more people understand or make an attempt to understand you know, a major group of people, I think the world becomes a lot better of a place. And so I think that the inclusion of characters representative of the show is a huge step forward in making the world a better place. I think the show actively does a very good job of it. And it does so by having an awesome, organic, original story. I think it does so in its charming characters and the way they're written. And I think I just think it's an important show, especially to be on such a platform that it's on. So I think the show is really great. Outside of that stuff, I think it's a really fun, entertaining show. I think it's well shot. I think it's well told. And I think just like outside of all of that stuff, as a Marvel fan, I think that moving forward, it brings a lot of things into the fold. And I think in a huge, major, exciting way. And it does so kind of it does so kind of subtly a little bit, you know, but like if you're there and you're on the up and up, you can pick up on it and you can get fucking excited about it, right? Because certain things are coming down the pipeline and it is a good time to be a Marvel fan. So that stuff is really cool in and of itself. But if you're not a Marvel fan, you're just like, hey, I'm looking for a show to watch, you know, and I'm okay with it being kind of like a teen drama a little bit or a coming to age story. And I'm okay if it's kind of like sci-fi or about superheroes or whatever, then this is totally a show worth watching. Or if you want to watch something that will at least expose you to major historical events that you probably were never told about or learned about or ever knew happen. I think that this show's worth a watch. So I think it's a very yes show for me.
Nice. I have one thing I wanted to talk about because you said something that it's like, you know, it's a very like teen friendly kind of thing, and there was never any point in this entire series where I thought this feels a little CW-y, and I don't think you've said anything to that effect either. But I think that that's worth almost praising, you know, singularly.
Yes.
You know, talking about that and praising it for not, and again, in the same way that the Spider-Man franchise, I think did a really good job of never dovetailing into
CW-isms, right?
CW-isms and such. And this one still does with love, diamonds, and whatever you want to call about, but not in a way that ever felt CW-y, and I think that was good. It felt genuine and authentic, and very much unlike a CW show that felt like artificial drama for the sake of padding it out for 20-plus episodes. So kudos to the creators for not going down that path. Enrique, how you feeling recommendation-wise on Miss Marvel?
Yeah, so I definitely really enjoyed this show. I think it's one of the stronger entries in the Disney Plus series. And the one point you're making, we can talk about it in spoilers about the future. I'm kind of like mixed on, like I'm like trying to get excited for it, but I don't fully know what to get excited for yet. So I think I just need like to know what's coming. So it probably didn't hit me as much as it could have, you know, but I think it's still where we end the show. I'm still like have some questions. I'm like, oh, I want to see more of this, and you know whether it picks right up in the Marvels or where it's going forward. I think they successfully created a new character that I'm very interested in with a good story. When I think about it in terms of like all the TV shows and stuff that I watched this year, even within the superhero TV shows, it's like definitely one of the better ones. I don't think this is like the best superhero TV show that I've seen this year. It probably goes to The Boys, but I think it's still quite good. So I think between very good and good, it could go either one, or very yes and yes. Okay. I think it can go either one, honestly.
You can cheat if you must.
But I think to me, yeah, any one. I think it's definitely solidly a yes, at the very minimum.
Okay. I'm gonna say it's an easy very yes for me. Had a blast with it. I think something to its credit, and I think that some of the other MCU shows have struggled on this particular front, is I think that it ended on a very, very strong note with one of its best episodes, if not perhaps its best episode, actually. And I think that helps. That helps a lot. I mean, it started strong. I think maybe it lulled a little bit in the middle, but I think, again, that storytelling reset in terms of its setting, I think really brought some new energy into it, which obviously Andrew found himself, attracted to and enjoying as well. And I felt the same way, and I felt like by the time it did kind of circle back to where it had started, it came full circle in a really satisfying fashion, and it promises a lot of interesting things for the future. And we know that this is just the start of this character, and her involvement in the MCU, and I'm really excited to see how she bounces off her, her actual superhero figures, you know what I mean? As we'll see that in the future. So, highly recommend it. I think it's a pretty tight little package of 6 episodes that I enjoyed quite a bit. Humorous when it needs to be humorous, spectacle here and there, not wholly reliant on, or even trying to be reliant on spectacle, but they're there when you need it to keep it, a little flashy and a little MCU-y in some ways. But yeah, I think it's a very yes. I would definitely recommend, if you haven't had an opportunity to catch Miss Marvel, particularly if you are someone that watches most of the Marvel stuff anyway, I do think that this is among the best of the Disney Plus offerings. I haven't thought hard enough about whether
like a ranking
it's
or
right at the top or anything like that. Yeah, I haven't done any rankings. We can get into that if you want. But I think that this immediately, I mean, I would say of the shows that we've gotten this year, because we would have gotten Moon Knight earlier this year. Did we get anything besides Moon Knight?
I think this year was just it. That's what I was trying to think.
Yeah.
Because Hawkeye was really at the end of the year.
Late last year, so it probably kind of bled into January. Right. I think it's right up there with Hawkeye in terms of just how much I enjoyed it. And I think I honestly enjoyed this probably more than Moon Knight, which I found to be very enjoyable, but more on the uneven side of things. I think just episode to episode. So for recent things that we've watched in terms of MCU, Disney Plus stuff, that's kind of how I would have it stack up. We'll see where She-Hulk places before long. But
I think for me, this is I have like a top 4, and then everything else is kind of like somewhere else. So this is definitely
fun.
This is definitely in my top 4 of Loki, WandaVision, Hawkeye, and Miss Marvel. This like solidifies my Disney Plus MCU TV offerings.
Yeah, I can get behind that. I can get behind that scheme of those 4. I think just being above the pack. Within those 4, I think I would struggle to really place one over the other, but you couldn't go wrong. Like, especially because they're also different from each other, that almost works to, I guess, Marvel's advantage of just basically being like, there's something here for everyone. So yeah, it's good shit. Yep. I think is the bottom line. All right, let's do full spoilers for Miss Marvel, and perhaps we should just get into the thing that we've been tiptoeing around.
The man is guitar riff.
The revelation of Kamala's genetics, I guess.
How did it go, Andrew? You gotta get guitar. Something like that.
I don't know if that's quite it.
Something like that.
But I mean, they used the M word, and they played the X-Men 90s theme, which apparently Kevin Feige is a huge fan of, having done it.
Who isn't the fucking fan of that
episode? But
theme, man, the theme is
a cool theme.
It's a banger. It's no doubt. It's a fucking banger.
It slaps, as the kids say these days.
It does slap. I would concur with that. So let's talk about this. I mean, traditionally in the comics, Kamala is an Inhuman who went through Terrigenesis and got her powers, and her powers are just big, stretchy, and beginning and such. And they kind of just chucked a lot of that out the window for this show. And I think that's ruffled some feathers, certainly for people who liked, the aspects of what her power set and the fact that she was Inhuman, like what that meant to her as a character, especially in the comics world where, like, obviously there are a shit ton of mutants. That's obviously not really the case in the MCU, where maybe there are mutants out there, maybe not. We don't really know, like, what the status of people with mutations are, and whether they're visible, known, or if it's something that's going to kick off in the future of the MCU. We still don't even know how mutants in general.
That's kind of my thing. That,
what happened at Comic-Con.
I'm just like,
so
I don't know what that means until we have like, there's going to be an X-Men movie, or like so and so's cast as Professor Xavier or Wolverine. So I think it's like cool.
If Giancarlo Esposito has his way, he says I want to play Professor X.
But so it's so
I think,
funny.
I think it could be really exciting.
Mutants,
yeah.
I was at work today, and one of the guys wasn't feeling very good. One of my coworkers. So we were having like a little meeting, you know, and he's looking at my dad, who was talking, and he had his pointer finger and his middle finger on both hands at his temples. Why my dad's talking? And all I can think about is, what are you doing to my dad, man? What are you doing?
Just going into his mind space.
Get out of my head, Charles!
I didn't say anything. Nobody would have gotten it, and I would have looked like a fucking idiot. But I started laughing, and
oh, God damn it, Charles!
Anyways, I'm an idiot. I can't help it.
That's pretty funny.
You know who the fuck I am? I'm the Juggernaut, bitch.
Anyways, I got hyped.
Oh shit! He knocked off my helmet.
Some gems right there.
Anyways,
oh my god,
that was a good anecdote. I enjoyed that one.
Very relevant too.
Speaking of mutants,
yes.
But you know, they played the song, and that's cool. You know, I don't know much about Miss Marvel in the comics or anything else, but you know, they've played fast and loose with a lot of stuff in the past.
Yeah,
you know, it's totally
exactly.
fine.
They change it to fit the story, right? And if the story going forward is mutants, then like you're not going back to the Inhumans.
What I don't,
no one wants to talk about the Inhumans except in a cameo in Doctor Strange.
They're lumped in there with the Brunos of we don't talk about them.
Yeah.
What I don't understand is how the what are the
powers or the bracelets?
The bracelets.
So that's the thing. Yeah, I'm still kind of I have a lot of questions about like how much of the power is within her, and she can just access it through the bracelets that is she's using Nor energy. So it's kind of like one of those things that I'm just gonna need more explanations and like understand a little bit more going forward.
Right, because there's a lot of lore that's kind of I don't know, a bit dense, I guess, like because obviously the villains are the clandestines who are from another dimension, like in terms of the MCU, I'm not even sure what another dimension exactly looks like. Is it another? It's like I guess that's not the same thing as another Earth. It's like
it made it seem
like,
different,
like what the mirror dimension is. Like the Nor dimension is something like that. So I don't really know how any of that shit works, and so obviously there's that where there's the energy that is part of how the powers work. And then there's the bracelet itself, which bangle, I guess, which clearly is related to that, because they're trying to use it, I think, to get back to their dimension or something like that. But also, she's a mutant, so it's like, okay, well,
yeah, that's what I'm. It's like it's a lot of moving parts, and it's like, is her mutant power that she can access the power from the bangles?
Like she can unlock the bangle basically in a way that someone else might just wear it as an accessory. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know that that's terribly clear. I mean, I feel like that was kind of what they were trying to say.
Because not everyone could use it. Whereas, like, I assume the 10 rings in Shang-Chi, whoever puts those on can use them. You don't necessarily have to be a mutant or someone special. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe like only certain people could use it.
Well, and that's interesting because I feel like the 10 rings kind of have they feel
like
similar.
There's a little similarity, right?
In terms of the way that they're used, and maybe they are also drawing on interdimensional energy or something like that.
Right, maybe.
We'll explore that in a Shang-Chi 2 or whatever, whenever they follow up on that post-credit scene, or mid-credits, whichever one it was. Yeah, I mean, I think it was kind of meant to just be a holy shit moment at the end of just like, oh, they're doing the thing. but it is hard to see the fuller context of things other than just, it's okay to be just generally excited about like, holy shit, mutants in the MCU finally, like, and maybe properly this time, because it's not just a cameo from Patrick Stewart, and he's in another Earth or whatever. Like, that's kind of a different flavor of mutants in the MCU, whereas this is very much front and center again of just, nope, mutants are here. What does that mean? What does it mean that she has this mutation? I don't know. No one knows. Maybe Kevin Feige knows. Give us a call. Let us know. No, I'll take it. I'll wait. I'll let you tell your story. I'll enjoy it with the rest of everyone. But yeah, it's just kind of a very cool kind of like, okay, it's kind of the heralding of one of the next big things in terms of the MCU, and obviously a lot of that is the Fox properties kind of coming home, so to speak. So we know we're getting a Fantastic Four, but of the things we talked about at Comic-Con, not a single one of those things was X-Men specific or mutant specific. Yeah. So we still don't really know what to expect moving forward, I guess, is kind of the takeaway somewhat. So
right. So I wonder if they're saving it for D23, more Disney Plus announcement. So we'll see.
There were a lot of blank dates on the Phase 6 like graphic they put up, so we might hear something.
I don't think this is coming out in like the next year, but like, they're planning stuff out several years in advance. And so I think whenever we do get more mutant stuff, I'll get more excited. And people that get upset about changes from the comics, like one, like Andrew was saying, stuff changes all the time, just to fit the story. And then two, I forget who said this, but I'm pretty sure I listened to it in a podcast that they originally wanted Kamala Khan to be a mutant anyway.
Yeah. Yep.
So, but then they couldn't do it. So then you had to make her an Inhuman. So it's not even like this. That's just how she is in the comics. But it's not even like that. I don't know if that was G. Willow Wilson's idea or whoever. But this kind of fits right in. This was like changing up, kind of. I think, and it's ultimately, I think, going to be like a minor change that just kind of makes sense within this universe. There's another universe where she could be an Inhuman. So, another Earth somewhere else.
I think at the end of the day, it's honestly probably mostly logistically, what makes the most sense, because, there's once upon a time we had an Inhumans film that maybe would have, made the Inhumans a big part of the MCU, or at least an established thing in the MCU. So having an Inhuman wouldn't be so crazy. And obviously we did have a huge cross section of Inhumans dealt with in lore and the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And it does seem like basically,
I feel like it's not coming back.
Kevin Feige doesn't give a fuck what happened in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., especially because by the end of that show, it very much was like, well, we don't really give a fuck about Thanos and company, so we're going to do our own thing. So I think we can safely just say Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s kind of off on either a different Earth or an Earth that's split off into a different parallel timeline at some point. So it's like, all right, well, are you going to do the legwork of like introducing like Inhumans, like outside of the royal family of Inhumans? Like, we got Black Bolt in a cameo, cool, but like you didn't really need to explain anything about who he was. Most people probably didn't even realize it was the same fucking guy.
He's a dude with mouth
power.
He's a dude with voice powers.
Mouth powers.
Right. Yes. What mouth? Right. So like you got everything you needed to know out of just some expository dialogue there. Here, it's like, all right, well, if you're introducing mutants, like, it's a lot easier to just be like, well, this is where it starts, and then we'll get more. Then we'll get a Professor X, then we'll get a Magneto, then we'll get, a whoever, maybe another Wolverine. I don't know. We'll see if they go to that well already. But, like, I think just honestly, from a storytelling standpoint, it's like, well, which is more interesting for an audience? Is it going to be mutants, or is it going to be grown Inhumans again? You know what I mean? And I think that they probably kind of went through that and, like, what does this actually change?
Right.
And I think the answer with her is probably very little. I think the bigger change with her was really just the depiction of powers.
Yeah.
I think that's the bigger difference. I think that had people a little bit more concerned, I think, from the adaptation of comics to live action.
Just a good segue. What are her powers?
Well, in which medium?
Yeah.
No. Certainly in MCU in this. What is it?
Yeah. They're like energy based, but they're like we're saying, like, it's kind of confusing how it works. Like, it's tapping into
Right,
energy
seems
from the
to be
Nord
using,
dimension.
like interdimensional energy to use like she's Green Lantern-esque.
I was gonna say she like seems Green
where,
Lantern-esque.
But then
she can do constructs.
Yeah.
Did she go back in time to bring her grandmother to herself? Was that the use of her powers?
Is that her power, or is that a dimension thing, or is that a bangle thing? To me, that wasn't super clear.
That I don't know.
I'm gonna assume she can't travel through time by herself. It needs to be some kind of event thing.
Yeah, that felt like almost like a weird like predestination paradox sort of thing, where like she always did that somehow, and it's just some magic timey-wimey bullshit that
maybe Miss Marvel is like the ultimate combatant to Kang because she can somehow travel through time and manipulate time.
Yeah.
I think that they'll I don't know. I mean, at this point, they've changed enough that they probably really could tack that on as another element of the character. To me, that feels really
OP
outside of the scope of who Kamala is in the comics. Which, like in the comics, like again, it's just like stretchy. She's Mr. Fantastic,
right? And I think that's the thing.
Quite.
If we're getting a Fantastic Four, is it like too similar to Mr. Fantastic, and you kind of want to differentiate it? Plus, you want to have her in a movie with Captain Marvel. Do you have to have her power set a little bit more similar? So I think it's all logistical. Fit the story that you want to tell.
In the comics, she's stretchy like Mr. Fantastic.
Basically,
but she also changes her mass, right? Like her fist gets stretchy.
She can change like her appearance too, in a way. Like she can kind of manipulate her body.
She's just like I think we think of Mr. Fantastic as like just kind of stretchy guy,
right?
And I think that Kamala, Miss Marvel in the comics is almost a step beyond that. Like it's almost more.
So she has more,
where she can stretch herself in a way that she looks like someone else, or she's bigger and taller, and and has a big old. She mostly just has a big old fist, and she punches people with it a lot. She does that a lot, but it's they're not quite the same, but there are definitely some obvious visual similarities just in terms of how you depict that.
Right.
Which obviously, by virtue of how they did it in the show, steers very much clear of it, of basically just being like, yeah, she's got a big old fist, but it's like purple crystals and shit surrounding it, so which is different. Cool. So honestly, it could be just a budgetary thing of stretchy people in live action can look pretty fucking wonky, especially with the state of current Marvel VFX, being a little rickety, I guess, overall.
Right.
This might be an easier way to just kind of conceal it, because she kind of did the thing, and especially in the finale, like she embiggens, she says the thing, and she does the thing where she's like tall, and she's basically like kind of walking on like almost energy stilts in a way, and having big energy fists and stuff like that. So it's kind of the same thing, just not as almost grotesque, I guess, in terms of appearance, which I think. I think that a lot of the criticism that I saw about how they were changing it and how it impacted the characters, the fact that her kind of power set was kind of gross, if you just put it in a crass way, like in the comics, is like, ugh, looking at that was another thing of just being like, well, she's kind of an outsider. She's a kid, she doesn't fit in, or she's having issues and stuff like that, and then her power set is something that's like, I don't know, not that cool. You know what I mean? Like, and here it's a little bit more cool. Like she's got some energy shit. She's Green Lantern light. Like she's not making Hot Wheels sets like Green Lantern did in his movie, lest we forget that movie as well, in case anyone forgot about Green Lantern 2011. He made some Hot Wheels tracks and hit people with his energy constructs and that.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. But it's more cool. It's definitely like way more cool in this. And like the uncool factor comes from the fact that she doesn't know what the fuck she's doing more than anything else. Like, the kid, she tries to save the kid in the one episode, and she does successly save the kid. I think the kid would have died without her intervention.
Yeah, that's a little.
It wasn't particularly graceful overall. So, and they were giving her some real shit in the finale. But I as someone who doesn't have a strong attachment to the character in the comics, I'm probably not exactly an authority on the subject, so take everything I say with a grain of salt in terms of how I feel about it. But I felt like they may have changed the powers, and they may have changed aspects of it, but I think they retained enough of it to still feel Like, it feels like it's Miss Marvel. It doesn't feel like it's a totally different character in terms of powers. But beyond that, it felt like they really, really captured the personality of Kamala and everything around, like, who she is as a character and who the people around her are that make her who she is. Like, that, to me, they excelled at, and I feel like that is all lifted kind of straight wholesale from the comics, from what I know.
And if anything, they made it more tied to who she is, making it be kind of this mutation that is probably, like, I don't know, it sounds like her grandma had some powers too. Like, this becomes a more familial component. It's not just like this inhuman thing. So I think that's how you add the historical part into it. So I think it ended up making it more interesting ultimately. So yeah.
All right. So outside of her being a mutant, which obviously is a big deal, we spent a lot of time talking about it. Any other spoiler things that stood out from the show? Episode 1 to 6, you guys want to talk about?
Are you all team? Who are you? Who are you shipping? Are you team Bruno? Team Kamran? Team Red Dagger?
I think I'm team Red Dagger.
Ooh.
He seemed pretty cool. I like the society they had. Over there.
They had that cool map. That map was
Red
cool.
Daggers, I guess, is literally what it was called. Yeah, and I liked the leader guy that got killed. He was very charming.
Cool.
I think he's like a famous actor in maybe even Bollywood stuff, or at least in the Indian film industry. I feel like he's like a very recognizable actor. So I think a lot of people were like, okay, he's just doing like one episode of this, which is like cool. I think it's just one of those things that, like, for people that aren't in the know, it's like, okay, this guy was like really charming and charismatic, and I enjoyed him, and I'm sad that he's dead. And then for everyone else who are a fan of his, well, it's probably the same sort of feelings, but it's also like, holy shit, he was in this thing. That's really cool. I don't know. I thought they were kind of cool. He was, there was an element of mystery to the Red Daggers and stuff like that, which I thought was kind of interesting. And I just liked, I don't know, it was a fun kind of like, I'm in a different country. I'll just, I don't have to worry about those boys back home or anything like that. I thought that was kind of fun.
Yeah. What about you, Andrew?
Andrew's very invested. I say all this shit about the CW. I swear it wasn't like that in the show. But it's these things without. But
it's done really well. Like I actually care and I'm interested, but it's not like a whiny teenage drama. It's just drama with teenagers.
I think
Bruno,
I think the Red Dagger Society was really cool. But I like Bruno. Bruno's kind of cool.
Yeah, Team Bruno.
He's like
I'm Team Bruno.
Team Bruno. He's just a down to earth kind of guy.
Such a good kid.
Yeah, he's a good friend. He's a good friend.
Yeah,
and he's a good kid. You're right.
And for the first 2 episodes, at least probably the first 2, I was just like, is this like purely a platonic friendship? I'm like, can't tell if there's like stronger feelings and more romantic vibes. Like, I think they're both very good about, because they're friends for such a long time. Like, Bruno's basically a part of the family. He's like, feels like he's just there, but you could definitely tell, at least on Bruno's side, that there are like these. It does seem to be very more like romantic feelings, and that was hard for my man to see her and Kamran.
literally every attractive teenager that she comes across. Ooh, who's this guy? Hello, this guy drives a nice car. Ooh, hello, this guy's got a fucking mask and he's got knives and shit. Yeah. Hello.
And Bruno's like, I'm smart. I'm smart.
Yeah, maybe. I think that it feels like they'll probably flesh that out in future things. I feel like, that was just kind of sowing the seeds of their relationships.
Sowing the seeds of love.
Sowing the seeds of love, yes, indeed. Sowing the seeds, the birds and the bees. But I could see being Team Brian. I mean Bruno. Sorry.
Brian.
That's where I stand. But it's a rare occasion where I didn't find love interests to be
right. Like they're all 3 very
especially
interesting,
because it was like each of them kind of has a different thing going on. Like obviously Kamran's like in a real shit situation, particularly by the end.
I was wondering if Kamran was going to become a villain. I was like, oh.
I thought
I'm
they
glad
were going that way with episode 6, and then they leaned away from it.
Right, I'm kind of glad
I didn't know what was happening when he was getting
yeah.
like the shit thrown into him, and he's just basically like, I have this fucking power and I can't control it. I don't know what the hell's going on. So, yeah, that was interesting. Damage control, bunch of Nazi fuckheads. Basically, is how I feel about them.
Yeah,
especially the one lady.
I was gonna say she was like particularly rogue. Even the guy was like,
she went completely rogue.
even the guy from Spider-Man, he's like, you're fucking out of control. And she's like, this is what happens when the wrong kind of people get powers. And it's like, like, what do you mean? And she's like, like teenagers. Like,
is that what you mean?
And something about it still felt like, this nothing about this shocks me. A bunch of basically cops / government agents attacking a bunch of brown kids. Yeah, nothing about this really seems that crazy. That exactly checks out. It's like pretty much these guys are assholes. How about the costume? You guys enjoy we kind of got the development of the costume a little bit, and then we got the full on reveal in the finale, which I think it's pretty sharp looking. If I do say so myself.
Cool. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I like it.
She still got the Converses, and add a little.
Yeah, sure. Right, like it just has a lot of flair. I think in terms of new costumes, this is probably one of my favorite costumes.
I think so too.
This is I'd say a little step above the Falcon costume that we got at the end of Falcon Winter Soldier.
The Captain America.
Yeah, it's a little step above that one. That one's still kind of like there's just something, I don't know, I think it's the goggles, or I don't know, that one's still kind of not right.
Little silly
but
about it.
This one was right. I feel like this one looked good. It was very reminiscent to her comic costume, but the fact that her mom made it too, and it's like with pieces that she's gotten throughout the journey, I was like, this is
awesome. That's cool.
Like, this works.
Honestly, like just building off that, like the scene that like when her dad comes out on the roof and they have the talk.
I love her. I love her dad.
Her name, like, oh man, that I was getting emotional just watching that. It was just really nice how accepting her family was, because I think that most other content would use that as a source of drama. And obviously, there was a healthy amount of drama derived from it, but like her brother was super supportive. Her mom, I think, was like they were still chill. Like she broke the rules and basically could have gotten grounded for life, but they were still just like, yes, we'll let you go to a party at your friend's house. And it's just like, well, most parents would say absolutely the fuck not. Like you're locked in your room forever. But her parents were like very like respectful and chill.
Oh, and when her dad wanted to go to Comic-Con as the Hulk,
and he dressed up as the Hulk, I was like, this is the sweetest thing.
It was super wholesome, and it was like,
as a kid, you're probably like, this is so cringy,
just cringing through it, but
right.
Yeah.
Oh, brought a tear to my eye, just like, and it was so heartbroken.
We're old enough that we look at it and be like, oh man, they're just trying, man. They're trying their best.
No, like her family's great. I probably, my favorite, like, I don't know, a lot of great supporting characters, but her family unit they're just all fantastic in different ways. Like, she obviously has a little bit more conflict with her mom, but then the way they like finally come to understand each other and see where they're coming from. She never even thought that her mom would like break the rules and do things, and she's like, no, like I like ran away to like go see Bon Jovi and stuff, and she's like, I can't even picture that. And then her mom like is concerned but like accepts her doing what she's doing, and
it's like the same thing as seeing Red or whatever. Or Red or whatever,
turning red,
Or like,
for sure.
Like when like the parental units go back to their parental units, it's kind of like makes everybody whole, because
I think
there's like a duality between the children or the teenagers or whatever that we see and we follow throughout the story, and there's a duality between their parents and their parents and the grandparents. You know what I mean? It kind of like. I don't know. It kind of comes full circle. It's I don't know.
It does.
It's pretty great.
No, it's great. I mean, I think in terms of like storytelling, like Kamala is obviously struggling with like kind of her place in general, and she's so like preoccupied and concerned with like everything, like with me, like what am I doing? Like what should I do? That sort of thing. And obviously as that relates to her family and like with her mom particularly, she doesn't really think about like well, what was it like for her? Like, what did she go through? And like, what did my family go through? And like, she's in contact with like her mom's sister, I think, right? Like her aunt or something like that is the one that like, she's like, oh, she's just like a kooky aunt, she's the one that sent all this, crappy jewelry or whatever. And like, she doesn't really understand like what the hell happened in this past. And then, it isn't until that she goes through the stuff and we have those episodes in Pakistan and kind of the flashback / maybe time travel episode, with the partition of India, like that she's like, oh shit, I understand so much more about everything that led to me being allowed to just be me and struggle with the dumb little shit in my life, and some of it's not that dumb, like, I have powers and like, that's obviously a big fucking deal. But, like the little shit of like, I really want to go to AvengerCon, but my parents don't understand why I care about this sort of thing. Like very ordinary teenager things, which is also turning red in a certain way of the parents not understanding like the boy band obsession,
right.
In that movie. So I don't know. It's all very relatable, and even like it all derives from just like being able to like look within and understand like, okay, like I have my own issues, but maybe there are other things that are happening here too that I should think about. I don't know. I just found that all really like well explored and very interesting in terms of informing her outlook on life and, kind of the outlook on the future moving forward, past the events of the show. Just very, very cool setup for everything.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No. Like the wedding scene was so wholesome. And like the scene, and like the scene beforehand where their dad is talking to him and just like giving him his little pep talk, and he's like, you just choose love and like that's all you can do. And I was like, man, like that's so nice. And then the wedding itself, I'm like, this looks so great.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a very fun.
I'm going to Indian wedding in like 3 weeks now, so I'm pretty pumped for that. Yeah,
nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's kind of cool too how her dad was kind of like her grandfather.
Just like similar.
Yeah, just super supportive, super loving, and just like, this is what we're all about, you know what I mean? And then like her mom's obviously like, a firecracker, and then Kamala's a firecracker, and all the women in the family are firecrackers, and all the men in the family are kind of just like super supportive. And it's I don't know, it's cool.
Yeah,
very cool. So obviously there's a lot in the show that we're not talking about / haven't talked about. Is there anything that we still want to talk about, or are we ready to talk about maybe post-credits or the mid-credits scene from the finale and kind of the future of this character? Is there anything before we get to that we want to talk about?
Yeah. No. Well, I mean, I think that there's a lot of like big stuff in here, but it's also kind of a like mostly contained show. So, I think just the dynamics are what stand out to me. It's the family, the friends, and yeah. So I think, covers most of it.
Yeah. Okay. So something happens in that mid-credits scene where the bangle starts glowing, and I think Kamala smashes into her closet, and then out walks who else but Captain Marvel herself, Carol Danvers. So what the hell's going on there? Maybe that's the first question.
Yeah. At first, I was confused. I'm like, did she turn into her? Did she swap places? And it seems like it was more of the swap places situation.
Seems like a swap. Yeah, and obviously this is set up, right, for a little film called The Marvels coming out next year. So
yeah, because I was probably 50-50 on Brie Larson making a cameo. I'm like, obviously there's a lot of Captain Marvel.
Well, she makes a cameo in Kamala's room because she's on every like poster.
Right.
Basically,
but I was like, are they gonna get Brie Larson for this? If so, like, how are they gonna incorporate into her? Like, I feel like it would be kind of weird if she's just like, just looks around like Captain Marvel just floating there. I'm like, okay, a little weird. Like, why would you seek her out? So I guess that's gonna be the way of like how their connection starts.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if this is just a scene from the Marvels, early on in the film of like, it feels like they have to address, well, first of all, where the hell did Kamala go? And obviously like what is Carol thinking as she's like looking around at this like shrine
what if she's
dedicated to herself?
What if she's in like in a different different planet, different galaxy, and all of a sudden,
Yeah.
Kamala's just like fucking in the middle of space, and just
It's like, oh shit, I can't
what?
breathe. Maybe the energy constructs allow her to breathe in space.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why they changed it. As like, I mean,
I was
not all
gonna
the
say,
Captain
like,
Marvel characters
let her
breathe
do
in
more space stuff.
Yeah, and then it won't feel as ridiculous. I don't know. I'm curious to see. I'm just really curious to have interactions between Kamala and Carol. I think that's going to be one of the biggest joys to come out of the future of Kamala's involvement in the MCU. Like, I'm excited to see. Honestly, I'm excited to see her bounce off of every fucking character in the MCU. Like, throw her in with the Spider-Man, throw her in with Daredevil. You know, just put Daredevil in.
She's a Tom Holland.
Put Daredevil in. She is, yeah. I mean, honestly, and I think that she could be kind of the glue of a sort of Young Avengers type team if you wanted to go in that direction. Absolutely. Yeah. So I hope that every scene of her is almost, you know, we kind of saw it, I guess, maybe a little bit with like Scott Lang, like reacting to like when he met the Avengers in Civil War and like, shit, like it's you. It's, you know,
and
like,
imagine her, like,
it'll
she's
be that,
true,
like, even more heightened
true
because
fanboy,
of who she is. Yeah. So I look forward to seeing more of Kamala. She just has such a fun energy and fun presence to her that I think that she will basically add a lot of life to, I think, any scene that she's in. You know, I think that the MCU has no shortage of characters who are scene stealers, who are, you know, somewhat along those lines of just like fun personalities. You know, when what happens with you throw a bunch of fun personalities in a room, like, you know, it should make for some pretty good entertainment. But I think more than most, honestly, Kamala just has that sort of vibrancy to her that, like, you don't see with some of the other characters quite to this extent. Anyway,
right.
So I don't know what the hell's going on at the end, other than maybe they swapped they swapped places. But we'll find out. We'll find out before long. So
I don't know.
Well, I think I'm out of things to say on Miss Marvel. How about you guys?
I'm out of things too, man. I'm really sleepy.
You sure? You don't have any other thoughts?
No.
Swirling around in there?
No other thoughts, just sleep. That's all I got. Sleep.
No thoughts, just vibes.
Eternal
Sleepy
slumber.
vibes. Okay. Well, Miss Marvel, check it out on Disney Plus, and look forward to her returning in the Marvels next year. But for now, let's talk about what we've been up to. Andrew probably has a lot to talk about.
Well, we heard a little bit. We heard about the concert.
We did hear about the concert. You have anything else
I went to the
that
thing.
Happened
Been
past
watching,
couple weeks too?
Sandman, Temptation
Talked
Island.
about Sandman, Temptation Island. I think we might have heard about on the special episode a little bit. Maybe Sarah was watching Temptation Island. Are you on the Temptation Island train now too?
I've seen, I think, 2 seasons of Temptation Island.
Nice.
It's very scandalous.
A lot of temptation.
Yeah,
might
this
On
one
an
dude,
island.
this dude, and this girl, his girlfriend went on the show, and like 2 days into it, he had a threesome with these 2 other girls.
He gave into temptation.
I'm sure that went well for all the parties involved.
He gave into temptation.
Yeah, it was pretty. It was one of the whoa moments. So that happened. That was pretty funny. We watched How to Build a Sex Room. We did watch that, which is on Netflix. That's pretty
On
good
Netflix?
too.
Yeah, I feel like I saw something about that.
It's pretty great. I highly recommend that one. The host of the show was just incredible. She's like this 67-year-old woman, and she builds sex rooms for people, and they're like super classy. They're not like dungeons or anything like that. You know what I mean? But they're pretty cool.
Suit in the corner.
Yeah, so it's like, yeah, it's just a really cool show if you're in a whole like home improvement shows, but you also just like maybe you watched all the home improvement shows on HGTV.
You need something a little spicier.
Right, exactly.
You're
Post
like,
honeymoon
what am
home improvement, you know.
Yeah, you're like, what should I do with that office that I don't use that often? Like, little sex room.
You need a tantra chair, I think is what it's called. It's like this like
There you
curvy
go.
chair, and like lets you get in all these different like. Anyways, so that's pretty cool.
Hey, this is we have the explicit tag, so we can talk about these things on the podcast.
What else did we do? We watched Sandman. Watched a movie on Netflix called shit. It's about this like It's about this singer, and she meets this guy. She doesn't have any health insurance, and she's diabetic, so she marries this guy that's enlisted, and then he ends up getting injured. It's like a Netflix movie. I can't remember. It's like all over the Facebooks and the GIFs or whatever. So we did watch that. It was totally okay. I have been working. I am employed, so that's good.
Still employed.
Oh, Sarah had her birthday. We went to the Hard Rock. That was fun. Spent the night at the Hard Rock Casino. That was cool. And I think that might be it. Yeah, I think that's it. I think that does it for me.
Purple Hearts is the name of that Netflix movie.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we watched Purple Hearts. That's a Netflix show.
I Googled singer enlisted Netflix movie, and it was my first result.
Yeah,
so.
It's a big popular one. It's a big, it's one of those movies. It was pretty good, It was all right. I can't think of anything else that I've watched. The biggest thing that I've watched recently is definitely Sandman. We've talked about that before. About that. So,
yep.
That's all I got.
We'll talk about it more when you finish it up, but you heard a few things about it on the Comic-Con.
Oh, I started. Did I tell you guys that I finished? I started and ended I think it's Dawnshard. Did I tell you guys that?
I think you meant. I don't know if you mentioned it in person or what.
I think you said I think you said that you'd finished it, I think, on the honeymoon, but I don't know that you really said anything substantively
I started and finished Dawnshard, which is like the novella in the Brandon Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson. It takes place between Oathbringer and Rhythm of War. Rhythm of War. And then I started Rhythm of War on the Audible. I'm like several hundred pages, I think, into the Audible thing. I've referenced where I'm at in the book, and I think I'm like 150, 200 pages in. Rhythm of War seems pretty good so far. And I will tell you that Oathbringer wasn't necessarily my favorite book when I finished it, but like the more I've thought, it's a really quotable book, and it's a real thought invoking book. And the more that it's kind of like simmered in my brain, and like the longer that I've sat with it, the more I've liked it. I don't necessarily know if it's The Way of Kings. I don't know if it's up there with that, but it is. It's definitely it's really close. Oathbringer is an incredible novel. So hopefully, Rhythm of War is right there with it. I listen to it just about every day. It's really good. I think that's officially it. I think.
Okay. All right. Henrique, what have you been up to?
I guess since we last checked in, what can I say I've watched and recommend? I watched the Jordan Peele's Nope. I thought that was quite good. Yeah. Saw that in Dolby. Okay. And I think it'd be pretty cool to see it in IMAX because it was shot in IMAX and everything, but it's just much easier to go to the Dolby nearby. But I highly recommend that movie. I think it's very different from his other two movies, but I appreciate all three movies for three different reasons. And this is a science fiction-y thriller with some horror, I would say, like not strictly horror, but I quite enjoyed it. Quite interesting. Quite enjoyed it. Very much a spectacle film. Like, have you seen this, Andrew?
No, I haven't seen Nope yet. No, want to?
No. The cinematography. Every time
someone asks you and you haven't seen it, you're just supposed to say nope, and then they'll be like, nope. Well, I don't know what that means.
The cinematography is outstanding. Like it's really impressive in particular. So you go check that out. I just saw the other day. I watched Prey on Hulu, the new like Predator prequel.
How was that? I wanted to see that.
It's pretty good, honestly. It's cool because it's very different. It's set I don't know how many years ago in the Comanche Nation, and this is it's like, what if Predator landed here, and there's no guns, there's no you kind of go back to like just a very primal like violence in fighting, in between the Predator, but I think it's a good story too, just in between the main character and like finding her place in her tribe and, you know, overcoming basically like the sexism and everything is like, you can't, like, you're not a good hunter, or just like, you know, I quite liked it. Yeah. Pretty solid, I will say. So recommend that one as well. In terms of TV shows, I might have mentioned this, but we finished season 1, which I think is the only season out of Our Flag Means Death, the pirate comedy on HBO Max, if it still, you know, exists by the time that this goes out. It's Rhys Darby from Flight of the Conchords and other, you know, projects like that. He's the gentleman pirate. He's like this rich man who just ends his life and becomes a pirate, but he's not very good at it. And he meets Blackbeard, and they have a like the best relationship I think I've seen on screen like in a while. It's just great. And I was pleasantly surprised. I think especially coming off of Thor: Love and Thunder, where I was like, I enjoyed this, but this is like not the Taika. To be clear, this is not like made by Taika. I think he directed an episode, but this is like someone directing Taika and everything, and just like it just really worked. Like I really enjoyed Taika in this, along with Rhys Darby and everyone else. But aside from that, I mentioned that I finished The Boys season 3. Honestly, maybe the strongest season of all 3. I think season 2 like was just really strong, but then this one might even be stronger. I don't know. Like it deals with a lot of stuff.
I kind of look like what's his face right now?
The Soldier Boy?
No, the other one.
Homelander?
No,
Homelander's clean shaven.
You're giving me some Billy Butcher vibes.
Oh, right? Billy Butcher. Oh, you can go for Billy Butcher. Yeah, you need some more.
As long as I don't
for that.
smile.
Yeah. Oh, he smiles too. He just,
you cunt.
Basically,
yeah,
there's a very thick accent.
That's all you have to say.
No, I think it's a really interesting in what they do. First episode of season 3, there is a scene where it's just like, even for the boys, it was pretty ridiculous. So just be warned.
Yeah, don't watch it with anybody. That it'll be weird.
Just be warned. Just be warned.
Also, I think episode 4 or 5, that would also be weird to watch with people too. That was a little awkward.
The hero-gasm is honestly not as crazy as that one scene. I don't know.
That was pretty weird.
Yeah, there's some. Everything else I think fits in with what you've seen seasons 1 and 2, and then there's just one scene that's just like, oh, okay, well. So if you can muster, I honestly, I think if you like the first 2 seasons, then you know. This is.
I have yet to go in on season 3 of The Boys, but it's
all there. It's all done.
Next on the list.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else?
I've been playing God of War, the 2018 PS4 game. You know, in preparation for God of War Ragnarok. And and it's got me more interested in Norse mythology too. I'm thinking about picking up the Neil Gaiman Norse mythology book and just kind of.
It's very good.
It's good.
Yeah.
More in it.
And the audiobook is very good too.
Yeah, so I was thinking just picking that up and going for it because, I think it's pretty cool. Like, he's already killed all the Greek gods, now it's time to kill all the Norse gods. You know, he's a true god butcher. He's a true god butcher.
It's the god butcher story that we wanted.
He's a true god butcher. Yeah. But good stuff. So,
nice.
Yeah, that's it.
Cool. All right. Well, on my end, we've got a lot of things. No, I'm just kidding. We got a few things to talk about. So after we recorded on our special episode, our second special episode in Love and Thunder, I went on vacation myself. Was jealous of all the honeymoons that you guys were going on. I didn't go on a honeymoon yet, but I did go on a vacation to Vermont. It was the first time that we visited Vermont this year. And we spent a week up there, rented our own place off of Lake Champlain. And it was awesome. It was so relaxing. Jumping ahead, it was a huge struggle to get back to Philly and get back to work life and all that good stuff, as I'm sure you guys, well, Henrique, I guess you've been okay because you haven't quite hit that yet. But for you, Andrew, I'm sure going back to work after the honeymoon was particularly brutal. And so I enjoyed my time up there is what I'll say. Did some reading, did a lot of time on the beach, a lot of swimming. The weather was beautiful. We had like a half day where it was kind of shitty. But it was awesome. And we had little Obi with us, and he had gone swimming in the pool in Florida when he was a little tyke, but now he's basically full grown. It was his first kind of foray with the water, and he loved it. We bought him some water toys, brought him with us, and he's literally scratching at the door. He heard my name, I'm sure. He heard me saying his name, I guess. But I mean, he would just have a blast in the water. He was just running around, chasing toys, swimming around. So it was just really awesome to just kind of have him there. It was a pain in the ass drying him off with the towel and not having him roll around in the sand and shit. But it was so fun up there, to the point where we're like talking about like next year, like, well, maybe we'll do 2 weeks next year. But it was just peaceful, serene up there. It's honestly like a different planet in some ways, or as Anna's grandfather would say, this is God's country. And I'm not inclined to disagree. So it was a very fun vacation, very relaxing. So one of the things, I guess I'll slightly jump ahead. One of the things I did do is I read an entire book while I was there. Now, don't get too excited because it's a pretty small book that's arguably just a children's book. I read Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone by that bitch, who we don't say her name. You know who. It's written by you know who. And so Anna, for a long time, did like an annual reread of the Harry Potter series. She's read it like a million times. I myself have not read since Deathly Hallows came out, since the final book came out. So it's like the first time in 15 years that I'm picking up the books and rereading them, which is kind of interesting. And obviously, in recent years, the collective affinity for Harry Potter has dwindled since J.K. Rowling has revealed herself to be a turfy piece of shit. It kind of sours the whole experience a bit, knowing that the creator is an awful person, but separate the art from the artist kind of thing or whatever, and we're donating to some trans organizations, I think, to just basically, I mean, we literally own the books already. It's not like we're spending money and, directly profiting or, putting money in her pockets or anything like that, but there's still just kind of that barrier of just being like, is there a way that I can do this and not feel bad about it? And that's the kind of the solution we came to, because we still enjoy the world, and I think the Harry Potter universe, maybe pre all the Fantastic Beasts pieces of shit films, is a very interesting world, with stories that I think still hold up. So Sorcerer's Stone is a very fun children's book, that we flew through. And I think it really enjoyed it. And we actually watched the first film as well. I think we're going to try to, as we read in sequence with each book, watch the film afterward. So Anna's a much faster reader than myself, so she's already through Chamber of Secrets, whereas I'm almost done with it. In fact, she's like 3 chapters away from finishing Prisoner of Azkaban. So we've only watched the first film so far. We'll probably watch Chamber of Secrets in the next few days, I would guess. But Harry Potter still holds up. The JK part aside, I would recommend it if you can find a way to enjoy the series without putting money in her pockets. Like I said, I think I can recommend it if you've never actually gone in on it. And I think the movies are streaming on either Peacock or HBO, or maybe both now. Outside of that, I watched Predator, and I watched Predator with Anna, who had never seen it, because Prey has been getting rave reviews, and I was like, I want to watch it. Of course I'm going to watch it. I didn't think she would have any interest in it, but somehow we ended up doing an amazing a double feature on a Saturday evening of Predator, first of all, which, I think holds up pretty well. Is a great 80s action film, good Arnold performance, good Carl Weathers performance, and just the creature design and like makeup and effects work just still like great. Holds up to this day. I mean, it's practical. That's what helps. That's what sells it. I mean, it's still weird. It's still weird to me that the look of the Predator in the original Predator film still looks more advanced and better than like more recent iterations of the Predator and more recent Predator films. I don't understand how they can like regress in terms of technology there. I mean, obviously there's an over-reliance on CG that's to blame, but even the practical like AVP ones still look like rubbery pieces of shit, that look like fake shit. I don't know how that's possible. I guess the same way that the episode 1 Yoda puppet looked as fucked as it did when the Phantom Menace came out. Maybe it's the same principle, but Anyway, I enjoyed Predator. Haven't watched Prey yet. I do want to watch Prey very soon, though, and I think we plan to watch it pretty soon. But she agreed to Predator under the condition that we watch a second movie as something really dumb that she chose. And so she chose A Cinderella Story, which is... When she said that, I'm like, I swear to Christ, we just watched this fucking movie. No. We had watched Ever After A Cinderella Story. This is the Hilary Duff one with Chad Michael Murray, which it's modern times, and they become like instant message buddies, but they don't know who each other are, and so there's like a Halloween formal in which she goes in like a ball gown and like a mask, and he doesn't recognize her, and so it's the Cinderella story but twisted into modern times. And
that kind of sounds like shit.
Look, some drinks were had, and through the first 30 minutes I was just like, Jesus fucking Christ, you know what I mean? Like, just like, holy shit,
it's like Temptation Island for me.
This is fucking awful. But then the remaining hour of it I had fun with. I'll say I had fun with it. Is it a good movie? No, it's not. But it is pretty entertaining. Wikipedia, according to the Wikipedia entry, it's since been considered a cult classic. Yeah. And so I had fun with it. I had fun with it in the end, and I think that alcohol definitely helped. In fact, I have no doubts that it helped. But sometimes you got to do what you got to do. So that's that. TV side, just one brief entry here. Finished season 4 of Schitt's Creek. Very, very good. Highly recommend. We're about 8 episodes into season 5. Fantastic TV. Always funny. It's on Netflix. All the shows on Netflix. So we're slowly churning our way through it till we finish it up. But it's just very funny. And then last but not least, I did a thing that I've never done in my entire life, and I'm very proud. I completed a Pokedex in a video game.
Wow.
Oh, damn.
Completed the whole thing. So I caught 241 Pokemon in Pokemon Legends Arceus. So it's a limited Pokedex. It's not the full 900 or whatever the fuck they have now. It's kind of limited for the scope of the game itself. Took me about 108, 109 hours. I've beaten the story. I've beaten all the post-game content. It's kind of a weird thing where, like, the game is called Legends Arceus, but you beat the story before you have any actual interactions with him, or with I don't know, with the Pokemon Arceus. But I love the changes to the gameplay formula in the game. I'm now like at the point where like I think I'm good. I've caught all the Pokemon there are to catch. I've there's really not a whole lot for me to do. There are other things you can do, to kind of lengthen the game. You can still go exploring and catch more. But I caught them all. They said I had to catch them all. And I did, and I feel good with that. I feel good putting it to bed, and I would highly recommend it as like a really fun RPG, especially for anyone that's already a fan of the Pokemon franchise. It feels fresh. It's basically Pokemon of the Wild, not quite as intuitive or well designed as Breath of the Wild is, but close. Closer in terms of like design philosophy. And so it's pretty good. So I'd recommend that. That's what I've got going on my end. So I think it's time for us to get out of here so that Andrew can mercifully
all right, go to bed.
All right. Thank you all for listening. If you enjoyed what you heard, please spread the word. We're on patreon.com/watchreviewrepeat. Head there. You can get early access to all of our regular episodes, access to some bonus episodes, and it's only $2 a month. I mean, come on. It's a great fucking deal, especially for the amount of content that we bank up and then takes, weeks for me to actually edit and get out to the masses. It's a great deal is all I'm saying. Our website is watchreviewrepeat.com. We're on the socials, on Twitter at WRRPod, on Instagram, Watch Review Repeat. We are on Facebook. If you search for Watch Review Repeat, you'll be able to find us, like our page. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions about anything you've been up to, because we've got a lot of catch up to do in August, watchreviewrepeat@gmail.com. We'd be happy to hear your thoughts on Miss Marvel, on The Boys, on Stranger Things, on any other thing. Nope. anything that's come out recently. We'd love to hear some thoughts on that. The intro and outro track is Mechanolith by Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com, licensed under the Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0 license. Next episode, kind of up in the air right now. We'll figure it out. We don't have anything set in stone. It's been done for a little while, but I'd like to talk about Stranger Things 4 in some capacity. I got to watch The Boys. I'd love to talk about The Boys once I watch it. I want to see Nope. I want to see Bullet Train. I want to do a lot of things with my life, and I don't have time for it all. God damn it! But we'll find time to talk about something. So stay tuned. We'll see what we have on deck. But for now, hopefully you enjoyed some Comic-Con goodness last episode and some Miss Marvel goodness this episode. And Henrique, thank you for a fourth consecutive episode. I appreciate having you on.
Thank you for having me. Happy to come on.
Thank you for joining us, sir.
Good. Well, I guess that's it. I guess you're released from duty, Andrew. Take the listeners out.
Take care now. Bye-bye then.
Laters on the Minjay.